At 2 in the afternoon on December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers departed Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The weather was clear, the forecast was favorable, and the mission, designated Flight 19, was a routine training exercise led by a veteran pilot with over 2,500 hours of flight time. Less than 2 hours into the flight, the routine broke. The flight leader radioed the tower in a state of deep confusion, reporting that they had completely lost sight of land. The ocean beneath them looked strange, the water appeared white, and most alarming of all, their compasses had completely failed. The Fort Lauderdale ground crew scanned the horizon, but saw nothing. Over the next hour, fragmented radio calls revealed the pilots were entirely lost, unable to find west. Then, the radios went dead. The military immediately scrambled 2 rescue planes to the squadron's last known location. 10 minutes after taking off, those rescue planes vanished as well. By sunset, 6 aircraft and 27 men had vanished. This animated map outlines the exact region where they disappeared, a massive 250,000 square mile stretch of the Atlantic Ocean, connecting Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. The total erasure of Flight 19 and its rescue crew cemented this region's reputation as a cursed supernatural void in popular culture. Investigation of the geology and atmosphere of this specific ocean region reveals a deadly, multi-layered geographical trap. This environment was perfectly suited to exploit the specific technological weaknesses of mid-century aviation. The records suggest Flight 19 fell victim to a synchronized failure of their compasses, an environmental assault that rendered 5 separate planes directionless. Millions of years ago, an enormous underwater volcano erupted to form the island of Bermuda. That ancient eruption left behind millions of square miles of dense, jagged basalt rock across the ocean floor. This diagram shows how that rock directly interferes with navigation. As magma cools into basalt, it traps massive concentrations of iron and magnetite. There are an estimated 500 billion tons of this naturally magnetic material sitting at the bottom of the Atlantic, generating localized pockets of intense magnetic interference. Adding a compass overlay to this diagram shows the immediate danger. The vast deposits of magnetite drag a standard navigational compass up to 10 degrees out of alignment. A pilot relying solely on that needle will inevitably confuse magnetic north with true north. This distortion trapped the leader of Flight 19. Relying on a shifted compass reading, he believed he was flying over the Florida Keys. Trying to correct his course, he aimed northeast, assuming he was heading back to the mainland. In reality, he was already over the Bahamas. Every mile he flew northeast pushed his squadron deeper into the open ocean. Ancient volcanic rock led these pilots astray, causing them to fly perfectly functioning machines in the wrong direction until their fuel tanks ran dry over the open sea. In January 1948, a massive commercial passenger plane called the Star Tiger vanished mid-flight. No distress signal was ever broadcast, and a 5-day search by 26 military aircraft turned up 0 wreckage. To understand the Star Tiger's fate, we have to look at a critical decision made by the captain before departure. Facing severe Atlantic headwinds, he chose to fly at an extremely low altitude of just 2,000 feet. That low altitude placed the plane dangerously close to the region's second major hazard, methane blowouts. When tectonic plates beneath the Atlantic shift, they destabilize frozen pockets of methane hydrates trapped beneath the seafloor, triggering massive eruptions of gas. This comparative density chart demonstrates the toll of those eruptions on surface vessels. When deep-sea methane aerates the ocean surface, the water's density plummets. It effectively becomes foam. A ship caught in that aeration loses its buoyancy and sinks immediately, as the airy water can no longer support its weight. Methane is extremely flammable, but it typically dissipates before reaching standard flight paths. However, at just 2,000 feet, the Star Tiger was low enough to encounter a concentrated plume. If this raw gas was sucked into the internal combustion chambers, it would act as a secondary fuel source, causing the engine to explode instantly. Whether the pilot momentarily lost track of his low altitude in the dark, or a violent methane blowout engulfed the engines, the extreme environment turned a single operational risk into total erasure. In December 1948, a commercial DC-3 passenger plane carrying 31 people took off from San Juan, Puerto Rico, heading toward Miami. The pilot was in a hurry. The ground crew warned him that the plane's battery was weak and the radio transmitter was malfunctioning. The captain opted to recharge the battery using the plane's generator while in the air, departing into the dark with no way to broadcast his position. The skies directly above the Caribbean are highly unstable. It's a natural engine where dry, blistering air from the Saharan desert collides with the moist, warm air hovering over the Atlantic. That collision breeds aggressive, unpredictable weather. Thunderstorms and hurricanes spawn frequently here. These storms feed off thousands of miles of warm ocean water to build strength before they approach the coast. The DC-3 entered this airspace at night with a failing electrical system. If the plane's weak battery finally died, the crew would be left navigating by sight alone. Hitting an intense, sudden squall without radio contact or lit instruments would throw the aircraft into an unrecoverable dive. This DC-3 was an electrically blind aircraft, swallowed whole by one of the world's most aggressive hurricane factories. The Bermuda Triangle is an incredibly hostile intersection of natural forces: deep-sea methane traps, localized magnetic interference from ancient volcanic rock, and a relentless atmospheric engine that churns out hurricanes. In the 1940s, aviation technology was remarkably fragile. Pilots tracked their heading with manual analog compasses and verified their altitude with simple gauges, relying largely on their own eyesight to avoid storms. Pushing that vulnerable technology through a 250,000 square mile geographic gauntlet practically guaranteed high casualty rates. The environment demanded perfection, and early aviation hardware simply couldn't provide it. Today, planes rarely vanish off the coast of Florida. The storms are still there, and the ocean floor hasn't moved. But we have since invented GPS, deployed satellite weather radar, and built digital avionics that don't rely on analog compass needles. Modern science and engineering quietly solved the mystery of the triangle by mapping these invisible hazards, rendering the region as navigable as any other part of the Atlantic.